China's military pressure on Taiwan isn't just a regional concern, it is reshaping how the United States positions its forces across the Indo-Pacific and how governments from Japan to Malaysia navigate security commitments and economic dependencies. What might seem like routine military posturing, aircraft crossing a median line, naval drills around contested waters, conceals a deeper system of structural pressures and strategic constraints that have been building for decades. According to international analysts, over one-fifth of global maritime trade, roughly $2.45 trillion worth of goods in 2022, passes daily through the Taiwan Strait. This artery of global commerce carries energy supplies, manufactured inputs, and about 60% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. An echo of irony is embedded here. A waterway narrower than many might imagine has become one of the world's most consequential strategic choke points. The curiosity that underlies the geopolitics of the Taiwan Strait is this: how did a single maritime corridor linked to an island economy of 23 million people become a structural lever shaping US military posture across an entire ocean region? The answer lies not in momentary politics, but in the accretion of infrastructure, logistical webs, institutional linkages, and force posture doctrines that span decades. Imagine global trade as an immense circulatory system with arteries and nodes. The Taiwan Strait is one such artery. Taiwan's semiconductor foundries are a central node. When a river of commerce is so concentrated, a squeeze at that point sends systemic ripples across the entire body. This is the structural reality that underpins the US Department of Defense's evolving force posture across Southeast Asia and the broader Indo-Pacific. Most observers begin from the conventional narrative. The United States seeks to deter a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. That explanation is intuitive and widely repeated, yet it is incomplete. In strategic thinking in Washington and allied capitals, the calculus has long incorporated supply chains, alliance networks, infrastructure guarantee layers, and regional presence systems long before Beijing's recent drills intensified. Conventional interpretation treats high-profile military exercises and deterrence postures as cause and effect. The deeper mechanism is the gradual entanglement of economic interdependence and security commitments. To unpack this, let's anchor on a person embedded in this network: Lieutenant General Douglas P. Guilfoyle, commander of U.S. Marine Corps Forces Pacific, circa 2024-2026. His remit isn't just traditional warfighting, it is the integration of logistics contracts, rotational bases, and multinational exercises across Southeast Asia. When Marine Rotational Force South China Sea rotates troops through the Philippines, conducts interoperability exercises with Indonesian units, or shares radar data with Japanese self-defense forces, it isn't just a training event. It is a node in an institutional mesh that binds operational readiness to commercial logistics, base infrastructure, and allied policy coordination. Step one in this hidden system is accumulation. Since the end of the Cold War, the US has progressively sown a lattice of agreements with allies: EDCA arrangements with the Philippines, reciprocal access protocols with Japan, and expanded partnerships with Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia. Each agreement brought with it construction contracts, supply depots, airfields, communication networks, and technical interoperability standards. These are not ephemeral. They are long-duration vents through which US military operational capacity flows. Step two is entrenchment. Over time, these agreements became embedded in bureaucratic routines. Pentagon budget lines fund annual rotations. Defense procurement contracts link American and regional suppliers. Training regimens standardized across multiple services create expectations of continued engagement. This entrenchment is comparable to a university that, through decades of expanding programs and facilities, finds its organizational identity tied to its campus footprint. Removing even one campus becomes structurally painful. Likewise, the US force posture is now woven into the security identity of countries from Japan to the Philippines. Step three is leverage. Herein lies the systemic irony. The US presence is often described as a counter to China's assertiveness, but in institutional terms, it also anchors US security constraints, contract obligations with host nations, co-development of joint logistics facilities, and integrated command and control systems make the US more committed than it might publicly declare. These commitments, in turn, shape China's perceptions of possible responses and feedback into Beijing's own deployment plans. In effect, both sides are locked in a feedback loop of structural interdependence. US alliances and military logistics reinforce Chinese calculations about forced deployment around Taiwan and the South China Sea. Historical patterns echo this dynamic elsewhere. During the Cold War, US forward basing in Western Europe, treaties, nuclear sharing, supply depots, was not just a deterrent. It was a logistical ecosystem that shaped NATO's political cohesion and constrained Washington's policy options. In the Middle East, US basing networks in the Gulf followed the discovery of oil, but then became institutionalized commitments that were difficult to unwind without economic repercussions. Across time, we see the same pattern: accumulating infrastructure, anchoring it in agreements, and then finding that these embedded systems carry their own logic of continuation. China's own approach mirrors that. Over decades, Beijing built port investments, trade corridors, and energy import routes across Asia and Africa under the Belt and Road Initiative. These infrastructure investments accumulated dependencies, entrenching Chinese firms and financial interests across regions. These too became levers of influence and pressure, not mere one-off projects. In the current setting, the infrastructure of pressure includes not just bases and contracts, but logistics chains and economic flows. Semiconductor supply chains depend on Taiwanese foundries with complex networks of chemical suppliers, lithography machines, and shipping linkages. These chains are so optimized that they resist rapid reconfiguration, another form of entrenchment. According to analysis, even a temporary disruption could slash global GDP by as much as several trillion dollars and reduce US output by a few percent, not because of violence, but because of the interlocked nature of production and logistics. This pattern of interdependence reveals repeating mechanisms. In Europe during the 1930s, rail networks and tariff regimes created economic lock-in that limited options for crisis responses. In the 1970s Middle East, oil flows and pricing structures shaped diplomatic alignments. In East Asia today, trade arteries and military alliance architectures co-evolve, creating a system where economic resilience, force posture, and diplomatic signaling are inseparable. Across time and space, we see institutionalization harden into constraint. Once systems are in place, they exert pressure to continue. A government that invests billions in deep water ports, satellite tracking networks, and joint command systems will find these commitments define its policy horizons. Southeast Asian states face similar entrenchment challenges. Nations like Malaysia and Indonesia must balance China as a top trading partner with their own security requirements, a tension that entangles commercial contracts with defense planning. Quiet consequences begin to appear. US force posture is no longer a set of deployments adjustable on a political whim. It is an institutionalized infrastructure bound by contracts, logistics nodes, interoperability architectures, and alliance bureaucracies. This infrastructure shapes not just where troops can be, but how quickly they can respond, what supplies they depend on, and which legal frameworks constrain action. At the same time, China's practice of gray zone tactics and maritime pressure amplifies regional anxieties about security guarantees, prompting further Southeast Asian alignment with US mechanisms, even where states seek neutrality. As these layered systems evolve over the next 5 to 10 years, a series of subtle structural tensions arise. Trade insurance markets may price in geopolitical risk, raising costs for exporters. Ports and logistics hubs in the region may attract military investment alongside commercial development. Educational institutions may expand programs in defense studies as public policy schools respond to rising strategic competition. Strategic ambiguity, embedded in treaties and logistics arrangements, may become harder to sustain without formal alliance commitments. Here is a lingering question worth reflection. When infrastructure, contracts, and institutional commitments become the scaffolding of security policy, who truly holds the levers of control? Is it the diplomats signing agreements, or the network of interdependencies that make those agreements self-reinforcing? In the anatomy of modern geopolitics, the arteries of trade and the veins of military infrastructure pulse in tandem. The Taiwan Strait, once merely a geographic channel, has become a crucible where these systems intersect. It is this intersection, not just the rhetoric of deterrence, that will define the contours of US force posture and security constraints across Southeast Asia in the decades ahead. The pressure points are structural, not episodic, and they will shape choices long after today's headlines have faded.